One of my favorite things about the expanded universes of Star Wars is the amount of time setting up a truly interesting galaxy, from the Outer Rim and the Galactic Arms, and the endless space and even other galaxies beyond, to hyperspace routes blazed in the early days of the Republic, which would set up the basics of galactic prosperity for several thousand years, to independent governments like the Hapes Consortium or the Cyruvi Imperium, to some of the most fascinating and dangerous places in the galaxy like the Deep Core. Now, I've done a few other videos on the Deep Core that you guys might be interested in, but today I want to focus primarily on its strategic significance and the associated dangers of the territory. So let's get started. As you might expect, the Deep Core rested in the center of the Star Wars galaxy, and in my opinion, it's one of the galaxy's strangest and least understood territories. So a lot of people expect the Deep Core to be the most important part of the galaxy. We know that core worlds like Coruscant and Corellia are centers of finance and art and industry, so you would expect even deeper towards the center of the galaxy to be even more important. At the very least, you would expect the Deep Core's proximity to planets like Coruscant to have led to massive colonization efforts just due to the mere proximity to these crucial worlds and the possibility for trade. However, in reality, the Deep Core is really not a nice place to be, and that is why we don't see a lot of super important planets in that region, or really a lot of time spent in the Deep Core. The New Ascent Atlas sums all of this up very, very well. It says, despite its proximity to some of the oldest civilizations in the galaxy, much of the Deep Core remains unexplored. The primary reason for this is just the difficulty and danger of navigation. The center of the galaxy is a cluster of densely packed stars, and this basically extends throughout the entirety of the Deep Core. So yeah, it is the center of the galaxy, but not really in a helpful way. Because hyperspace is sort of like a shadow of real space, and safe hyperspace travel requires the absence of large gravitational bodies, it is very safe, if not sometimes impossible, to actually chart courses through the Deep Core. And even where courses have been established, slight miscalculations or malfunctions can easily lead to death. Any safe hyperspace routes that do exist need to be constantly re-navigated, and typically in Star Wars, ships would get this information from local stations. However, various factions have endeavored to keep the Deep Core secret, or at least untraveled. There's also the fact that while the Deep Core does offer basically a route across the galaxy, the center of the region is not only difficult to explore, but also impossible. At a certain point, the stars are simply packed too closely together, and at the center of the galaxy is a massive black hole, making hyperspace travel simply not a thing. So basically, the Deep Core is very, very difficult to navigate, and thus there isn't a lot of activity in that sector. Though there are a few major planets, the most notable ones certainly being Empress Teta. One final thing to note before we move on is that during the time of the Republic, colonization of the Deep Core just wasn't really desirable because there were more simple but equally prosperous places that you could reach within the ever-expanding borders of the Republic. So, where's the other half of this video? If the Deep Core is dangerous, then why is it so useful? And there's really two things here. First is the possibility for strongholds. Second is something that we kind of alluded to earlier, and that is the proximity to the core and the vital worlds of the galaxy. Remember, I said that hyperspace navigation was very, very difficult. However, it's not impossible. So, we know again from the New Essential Atlas that Emperor Palpatine, even during his time as Chancellor, made a concerted effort to actually explore the Deep Core using, for example, probe droids. Palpatine, the egomaniac that he was really big on manipulating space to accomplish his goals. We see not only the attempted mapping of the Deep Core, but also things like creating artificial hyperspace lanes using S-boosters, as he did with the Sanctuary pipeline that led to Endor. Anyway, after early mapping successes, Palpatine fed information about the Deep Core, and in particular one secret hyperspace route, to the Separatists, and they used that information to launch the attack on Coruscant. And this was really essential because the Battle of Coruscant was all about Palpatine making the citizens of the Republic feel vulnerable. In reality, Coruscant was well defended and would have been able to prepare for a traditional attack, but with Palpatine's manipulations, citizens felt like the war could come anywhere, and that was just one step of Palpatine's further militarization. As we've discussed a few times in prior videos, secret hyperspace lanes were also key to the New Republic's victory at Ebac 9, which arguably changed the tide of the Yuuzhan Vong War. If you want to learn more about the specifics of that, you can check out the video all I did about hyperspace travel and why you can't just go around blockades. So the other thing that makes the deep core, well, deeply important is the potential for high security. I mentioned that to travel in the deep core, you need constantly updated hyperspace maps, and that's true. In fact, they need to be updated as frequently as once a month, beyond at least what was called the horizon. So on one hand, this is certainly a detriment because it means you need to constantly be keeping mapping information up to date, but on the other hand, this is a very, very easy way to keep people away from areas that you don't want visited. For example, the Empire under Palpatine heavily established a presence within the deep core. This allowed him to make various bases and secret facilities and just more plain things like factory worlds that couldn't be visited without Imperial authorization. Not only were there fleets surrounding the hyperspace lanes, but if you couldn't access Imperial data, you just couldn't get in. Even Han Solo, sneaking past an Imperial fleet, can't make up a hyperspace course that's going to work without the necessary data. And as I talked about in a prior video about factions exploring the galaxy, it's very, very difficult, especially as an individual, to actually blaze hyperspace routes. It's basically impossible, which is why galactic governments have typically been the only sources of new exploration in the galaxy. A lot of it is literally sending ships and people out through trial and error until you find a way that works. So the Empire found all these new and inaccessible high security worlds in the deep core, and Palpatine did something that was very smart. He had them inhabited by his most loyal supporters. Essentially, he made a redoubt should the Empire fall. And this is almost like what happened as well with the Empire of the Hand. Palpatine always had redundancies. Within the deep core was Palpatine's most secured world, Biss. Not only was that in a very inaccessible zone, protected by his fleets, and of course inhabited by his most loyal supporters, but Biss Run, which was the only way to actually get to the planet, was actually an artificial hyperspace lane, kept open only by S-boosters. Biss housed not only the Emperor's Citadel and Palpatine's cloning chambers, but also secret construction yards, which made ships like the Eclipse II Dreadnought and the Galaxy Gun. And even after Palpatine's death, the deep core remained a hotbed of Imperial activity. For a while, really, the deep core was the only place in the galaxy where a strong Imperial presence remained. This was after the infighting of the warlords and Thrawn's campaign and Operation Shadow Hand. It was really deep core warlords like Sandor Delvardis and Blitzer Harsk who had a lot of the remaining power in the galaxy, or at least the remaining Imperial power. The New Republic would have had a very, very hard time actually getting the Empire out of the deep core, and there remained some secrets, including some Super Star Destroyers which had gone unclaimed, most notably the Megador. However, the Empire's spread and their prosperity was also severely limited, which is why Pelion chose to move the Empire into the Outer Rim. So yeah, the deep core is a very dangerous place, but offers a lot in the way of strategic military value, from secret hyperspace lanes to secret fortresses, if you have the money to not only establish the hyperspace routes, but track their movement, so your ships don't get blown up when they're trying to move to, well, wherever they need to go. But that's all I have for today. If you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like. It's 100% free and it helps the video out. And if you enjoy my content, consider dropping a subscription and turn those notifications on, because there is a lot of cool stuff coming in the next few days. Also, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to my second channel, X2. I recently posted a new Star Wars Squadrons video over there, which a lot of you guys have been interested in, and I've got some cool stuff planned for there as well. But guys, that's all for now. Until next time, have a good one, and may the Force be with you.